So essentially what we made is a room foot traffic analysis system. It is able to keep track of the occupancy of people or just movement within a room, and we find that it has more applications than motion sensors simply because motion sensors are more sensitive than the actual sensors that we use. So our system consists of 2 time-of-flight sensors that are going to be embedded into door frames or in ceilings depending if they were more powerful. Connected to a board that communicates over Wi-Fi to a Raspberry Pi, which does processing on chunks of data that are sent from the board to the Pi. So the ESP, which is our time-of-flight board, will read a chunk of data, send it over to the Pi, and the Pi will then process that chunk of data all at once and determine if someone entered or exited a room. Then from the Raspberry Pi, it either uploads to a ThingSport application or it uploads to a database. With this data, you can analyze it in the future and determine, which rooms are occupied at certain times, which rooms are not occupied at certain times, etc. So the idea of this is we thought that it would apply to business situations more specifically. So for example, if a business is renting out 3 floors and they have a feeling that some of the floors aren't being used to their full potential, they could do the room traffic analysis on the 3 different floors, determine, hey, only 4 people use this room only once a week. We could probably migrate them down a floor and save money overall. It also has applications in the home automation system where it would be able to determine if you are in a room, it will keep the lights on for you. And if there are a lot of people in a room and the heat is generating and it's building up quickly, to turn on the cooling before it gets too hot for the people. As everyone knows, that tends to happen often. And the system actually reacts too late most of the time. Alternatively, if the room is too cold and no one's in there, it doesn't need to turn on the heating. It could save a lot of power doing this. As well, it could also turn up the heating if someone enters the room immediately, if the room is already too cold and it knows that the user is trying to enter the room. It could also have applications for future machine learning applications. So if someone's usually in a room at a certain time, it could preemptively turn on the heating or cooling. That was the idea behind the system. And yeah, that's everything.
Can you also show the demo?
Oh yeah, sure. So what we have set up here is we have it set up by the door. Currently, it would be embedded in a door frame, but it is currently taped to a coffee cup. So it is pointing out in 2 directions from the door. So it reads in one sensor, and then it reads in the other sensor, and it detects which one was stopped reading first and which one started reading first. So if you would walk through, you'll notice that the occupants in here will change. So we just added one person to this room, and we removed someone from the outer room because a person migrated from one room to the next. Ideally, you would want this on multiple doors and within every door within a floor, every entry and exit access way. We found that if we wanted to scale it up, we would use the central database instead, and we would have a much more powerful machine than a Raspberry Pi actually doing the processing, because currently the Raspberry Pi has problems keeping up with the large chunk of data sent at once. We also had to do some memory optimization, obviously, because we have very cheap boards over here, but ended up working out quite well.